Welcome to Teresa's Test Tips. I'm a Columbia-educated, perfect-scoring SAT tutor, and I've created this channel to give you access to high-quality test prep at a fraction of the cost. To make the most of this channel, you will only need the official SAT study guide, which I will put a link to below in the description, and you also just need your brain. So if you have both of these, you can improve your test score with the help of this channel. If you find these videos helpful, I hope that you will click like and subscribe, and if you have particular topics that you would like me to cover, please just leave a comment in the comment section below. Thank you. In this video, I'm going to be doing a cold read of a fiction reading passage in Test 1 in the official SAT study guide. So what I'll do is I'll read, and then periodically I'll stop and tell you what I would be thinking as I read, because good readers talk a lot back to the text and process a lot as they're reading. On the SAT, you can do this. On the ACT, there's not really a lot of time to think thoughtfully about what you're reading. They're very different tests for the reading section. They're just testing different skill sets. Okay, so this is page 334 in the official SAT study guide. It's also test 1 if you want to access it on Khan Academy. So this is test 1, section 1, and this is the reading test, and this is passage 1. Okay, so always read the intro because sometimes it has very important information. For example, sometimes it'll help you picture who the characters are. So sometimes it will give you their names and then their relationships. Other times you have to figure that out on your own, but always read this little intro part because it can have very important information. For example, on the old SAT, in one instance, this little intro part told us that the speaker in the story was blind, and if you didn't read that, you would get everything wrong, basically. That's kind of unusual, but it can happen that this detail in the intro is critical. So this one says, this passage is from Lydia Minatoya, The Strangeness of Beauty, 1999, by Lydia Minatoya. The setting is Japan in 1920. Chie and her daughter, Naomi, are members of the House of Fuji, a noble family. Okay, so therefore we know who Chie and Naomi are. So we know their relationship. Chie is the mother of Naomi, and that will be helpful as we read. And we also know they're in Japan, so we can call to mind anything that we do know about Japan in the 1920s. Although it's never necessary to have outside knowledge in an SAT passage, like no outside historical knowledge or scientific knowledge. You should be able to get by just with reading carefully the information provided. Okay, so I'm just going to read and then note things that I would be thinking as I'm reading the passage. Okay, so it says, Akira came directly, breaking all tradition. So I'm just noticing this is a character name that wasn't in the intro. So I'm just trying to figure out who he is or she is as I'm reading. Akira came directly, breaking all tradition. Was that it? Had he followed form? Had he asked his mother to speak to his father, to approach a go-between? Would Chie have been more receptive? So I do know that the word receptive means someone's open to some idea, basically. So this first paragraph is painting a picture of Akira asking questions and considering how things might have played out differently had he made different choices. For example, had he asked his mother to speak to his father to approach a go-between, would the situation have turned out differently? Okay, he came on a winter's eve. He pounded on the door while a cold rain beat on the shuttered veranda. So at first Chie thought him only the wind. The maid knew better. Chie heard her soft scuttling footsteps, the creak of the door. Then the maid brought a calling card to the drawing room for Chie. Okay, so this is just describing the night when when Akira approached Chie. And I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing the names. I will put a comment in the section below if I am able to figure out the correct pronunciation. I'll try to put a note about that. At this time, I'm not clear on what the pronunciation is. Okay, so this is just depicting how Chie didn't even realize that Akira was knocking. She thought it was just the wind. This doesn't seem super important. This just seems like an introductory lead up to this incident in which Akira does something that led him to, wonder, like, should he have acted differently? Okay, so Chie was reluctant to go to her guests. Perhaps she was feeling too cozy. She and Naomi were reading at a low table atop a charcoal brazier. I have no idea what that means. A thick quilt spread over the sides of the table so their legs were tucked inside with the heat. That sounds great. So it sounds like she was disrupted from this peaceful, cozy environment. Who is it at this hour in this weather? So at this hour is implying that it's kind of like late or not appropriate timing for someone to be coming and knocking on their door. Chie questioned as she picked the name card off the maid's lacquer tray. Shinoda Akira, Kobe Dental College, she read. Naomi recognized the name. Chie heard a soft intake of air. Oh, so Naomi's like gasping or something? Okay. I think you should go, said Naomi. So Naomi is the daughter of Chie, and she's just saying, oh, you should go talk to this Akira figure. You should go talk with him. It's not just some random person. It's kind of implying that Naomi knows who Akira is. Okay. Now I'm at the top of the second column. Akira was waiting in the entry. He was in his early 20s, slim and serious, wearing the black military-style uniform of a student. So this is just some details. These are just some details that are just characterizing Akira. As he bowed, his hands hanging straight down, a black cap in one, a yellow oil paper umbrella in the other, Chie glanced beyond him. In the glistening surface of the courtyard's rain-drenched paving stones, she saw his reflection like a dark double. I don't really know what that means, but I would just, like, when I'm reading, I'm kind of trying to remember where striking phrases are or where things are happening. I'm not trying to memorize exactly what's happening. I'm just trying to get an idea of where information is, because I will do a lot of rereading when I answer the questions. And I'd also say that I'm not really sub-vocalizing all of these observations. These are just some of the things that I'm having a vague awareness of when I'm reading. So my actual reading would be faster, and I wouldn't be, like, stopping and saying those things to myself. The only time I'd really stop and start kind of, like, sub-vocalizing, saying things in my head, would be when I have some type of sudden awareness of a dynamic or a situation or a plot point, and I just kind of say, oh, this happened. Or the other thing that I do is, if I'm confused, I will hypothesize different possible interpretations of something, but I never get too bogged down in any one detail because you just don't know what they're going to ask about. So if you're really confused by something, like let's say, oh, I really want to figure out what this dark double thing means, it probably won't even matter because they probably won't ask about it. Sometimes there are things that stand out to me as things that they're definitely going to ask about, but most of the time you just want to get an idea of where information is so that you can go back and reread it in detail if you need to. Okay, so now I'm just picking up at Madam, line 31. Madam, said Akira, forgive my disruption, but I come with a matter of urgency. So he's going to eventually say what this urgent matter is. Okay, his voice was soft, refined. He straightened and stole a deferential peek at her face. I do have the benefit of knowing that deferential means that he's acting as though he's like inferior, basically. It's just saying he's being respectful towards her, basically. In the dim light, his eyes shone with sincerity. She felt herself starting to like him. Okay, so that's good. She's starting to have a positive feeling about him, even though he was kind of rude to come to their house so late at night. Okay. And also, like, you know, he just said, it's urgent, that's why I'm being kind of rude and coming late at night to your house. Okay. His voice was soft, refined. He straightened and stole... Oh, I just read that. Okay. In the dim light, his eyes shone with sincerity. Yep, I already read that. Okay. Come inside, get out of this nasty night. Surely your business can wait for a moment or two. This is Akira talking. I don't want to trouble you. Normally, I would approach you more properly, but I've received word of a position. I have an opportunity to go to America as dentist for Seattle's Japanese community. One thing I would say here is that whenever a character is, like, deviating from what's normal, so, like, the fact that this character says, normally I would approach you more properly, but then they're pretty much going to ask about that. They're going to say something like, why didn't he approach her more properly? Those are things that jump out at me as questions they're probably going to ask whenever a character's behavior deviates from the norm for a society or for that character. Because the test is testing if you can notice subtle nuances of meaning. So it's testing if you can notice when, usually like when a character is acting out of the norm. If the characters all acted 100% in line with what we would expect people to do normally, then you would just use common sense to answer the questions. That's why, for the most part, the characters are going to be in unique situations that are evoking kind of unique responses that you wouldn't be able to use just common sense to figure out how people would be thinking and feeling. Okay. And then it says, congratulations, Chie said with amusement. That is an opportunity, I'm sure, but how am I involved? Even noting Naomi's breathless reaction to the name card, Chia had no idea. Akira's message, delivered like a formal speech, filled her with maternal amusement. You know how children speak so earnestly, so hurriedly, so endearingly about things that have no importance in an adult's mind. That's how she viewed him as a child. One thing that I want to note here is that we usually want to think about what is the narrative voice, and in this case, this is an omniscient third-person narrator, so this narrator isn't a character in the story, but this narrator has access to the thoughts of all the characters in the story, so the narrator knows that Chie has this kind of like maternal amusement toward Akira and views him as a child, but Akira doesn't know that Chie views him that way. So that's important. That's the type of thing that a lot of students will get confused about when they're looking at the questions and the answers. So try to keep the different voices and minds separate. So the omniscient narrator can know thoughts and feelings of characters that the other characters in the story don't have access to. Okay, so now I'm picking up at the top of the second column. It says, it was how she viewed Naomi, even though Naomi was 18 and training endlessly in the arts needed to make a good marriage. Chie had made no effort to find her a husband. Okay, so the mom has made no effort to find Naomi, her daughter, a husband. Then it says, Akira blushed. Depending on your response, I may say in Japan, I've come to ask for Naomi's hand. So it means asking for her hand in marriage. Suddenly, Chie felt the dampness of the night. Does Naomi know anything of your ambitions? So that's Chie saying that. We have an understanding, this is Akira. Please don't judge my candidacy by the unseemliness of this proposal. This kind of does jump out at me as something they might ask about. Sometimes, like, when they have a tough vocab word, it makes me think they're going to ask a question about it. So there is a decreased emphasis on obscure vocabulary in the new SAT, but they do want you to be able to use context clues to figure out vocabulary in context. So this might be a sentence that you'll have to go back to and look at when you answer the questions. Okay, so now Akira says, I asked directly because the use of a go-between takes much time. Either method comes down to the same thing, a matter of parental approval. If you give your consent, I become Naomi's Yoshi, and Yoshi is a man who marries a woman of higher status and takes her family's name. So, you know, when there's an asterisk, you can go down and see what the definition of the word is, which is what's going on here. We'll live in the house of Fuji. Without your consent, I must go to America to secure a new home for my bride. Okay, so he's asking directly for parental permission, and we can tell from what he's saying here and also from the intro, like the first two paragraphs, we can tell that that's not typical in the Japanese society at this time. Okay, so then it says, eager to make his point, he'd been looking her full in the face. Abruptly, his voice turned gentle. I see I've startled you. My humble apologies. I'll take no more of your evening. My address is on my card. If you don't wish to contact me, I'll reapproach you in 2 weeks' time. Until then, good night. He bowed and left, taking her ease with effortless grace like a cat making off with a fish. Okay, I don't know what that means, but if they do ask about some metaphor, I'll kind of think to go back to this line. Okay. Mother, Chie heard Naomi's low voice and turned from the door. He has asked you? The sight of Naomi's clear eyes, her dark brows, gave Chie strength. Maybe his hopes were preposterous. So it sounds like, as far as I can tell, Chie doesn't love the idea of Naomi marrying Akira. Okay. Then Chie says, "Where did you meet such a fellow? Imagine, he thinks he can marry the Fuji heir and take her to America, all in the snap of his fingers." So this is showing that Chie thinks that Akira is kind of presumptuous, like he's kind of pushy, and it's kind of rude, she thinks, of him to think that he can just take Naomi without going through the proper formal channels. Okay. Chie waited for Naomi's ripe laughter. Naomi was silent. She stood a full half minute looking straight into Chie's eyes. Finally she spoke. "I met him at my literary meeting." Naomi turned to go back into the house, then stopped. "Mother, yes, I mean to have him." So the end of this is saying basically that Naomi does like Akira. Okay. So that's a lot of information. So in this case, I went through the reading and explained what I was thinking as I was doing it. So one thing that you might want to do is, now that you've heard Perfect-Scoring SAT Tutor read it, you might want to see how you think about the questions. Having heard someone debrief the passage, you could see if you benefit from that. Another idea is to go along with me as I answer the questions, which will be in the next video, so you could hear how I process each of the questions. Another idea is just to then do the questions on your own, and then just click on the links for the questions that you got wrong to see how I arrived at the correct answers. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. If you did find it helpful, please click like and subscribe. If you have questions, please just leave them in the comment section below. Thanks. Okay, so now I'm just going to go through the questions and talk through my process of answering them. Okay, so number 1, which choice best describes what happens in the passage? So one thing I would say about this is that you should be very open-minded. Often, the first time I read the answer choices, I think that they're all wrong. So I'm going to go through one by one and talk about pros and cons for the answer choices. So A, one character argues with another character who intrudes on her home. This is in the category of being kind of too aggressively portraying the passage, you know. Chie is a little offended that Akira has imposed on her a little bit, but this is way too extreme. They don't argue. If you imagine what the passage would look like if this were the right answer, there would be harsher words exchanged between Chie and Akira. Okay. B, one character receives a surprising request from another character. Maybe. I mean, it is kind of surprising that Akira is breaking tradition by asking directly for Naomi's hand in marriage, so maybe. C, one character reminisces about choices she has made over the years. Well, reminisces is a really positive word, meaning that you're looking back with nostalgia, with fond feelings about the past. And I don't see that in this passage. More of what I see is Akira almost kind of beating himself up over what happened, wondering if it could have gone better. So I think this is too positive. I also don't like how the emphasis is on a female character. The main character really is Akira. That's the person who's central to this narrative. D, one character criticizes another character for pursuing an unexpected course of action. Okay, so D has some appealing factors to it. But let's imagine for a second what the passage would look like if D were the correct answer. If that was right, you'd hear a lot more of Chie's thoughts. Chie would be the central character, that's the mother, and she would be criticizing Akira. It's true that there's a character pursuing an unexpected course of action, but that's also part of B. So I like B a lot better because it emphasizes that Akira is the main character, and also if you just were to say what this passage is about, it's about Akira asking for Naomi's hand in marriage in an untraditional way, according to this culture, and B captures that more than D does. The emphasis is not on criticizing Akira, it's just on capturing this scene of Akira asking for Naomi's hand in marriage in an unconventional way. Okay, number 2, which choice best describes the developmental pattern of the passage? For this kind of question, you might want to predict before you look at the answer choices, because then you'll be thinking more inductively about the answer choices as you look at them. So if we were to just summarize the pattern of the passage, I would say there's a bit of a mystery about what exactly Akira has done. We know kind of that he's broken tradition, but we don't know what exactly the tradition was. And then ultimately we're taken to the scene of the event that he is contemplating at the beginning. So I think there might be something like that in the answer choice. So now we can look at the answer choices. It's better to have thought about it before looking at the answer choices in some cases, because then you can think about it before you read the answers. When you read the answers, often everything seems right when you read the answers. Okay. This one, A careful analysis of a traditional practice. Well, one thing that I don't like about this answer choice is that actually this passage is showing someone breaking the tradition, so we don't get a lot of details about what the tradition is. We really just get a lot of details about how it's been broken. Yeah, so it's kind of implied what the tradition is and at times stated, but I don't love that answer choice. I think a lot of students probably pick it because they are exploring a practice, a marriage proposal practice in the society. So I would say that counts as kind of a trap answer. So I would look out for that kind of question, kind of answer that takes kind of like a noun that is present in the passage, like a traditional practice is an adjective and a noun that are accurate to the passage, but the developmental pattern, I don't think, is a careful analysis of the traditional form of the practice. If you imagine what that would look like, it would probably look like them talking about some other person who proposed in a traditional way and it worked out fine, something like that. Okay, B, a detailed depiction of a meaningful encounter. I do like that one because it has a lot of details in the passage, and of course always a marriage proposal is a meaningful encounter. Encounter doesn't have to be negative. It just means an interaction between two people. So I like that one so far. C, a definitive response to a series of questions. Well, we really don't actually know what Chie's answer is, the mom's answer. We know that Naomi says, I mean to have him. But I don't feel like we know at the end of the passage whether or not this marriage is going to happen. I think it's left up to interpretation at the end of the passage. So I don't really like the word definitive, because definitive means that they know for sure what's going to happen. D, a cheerful recounting of an amusing anecdote. So this is much too positive. It's way too lighthearted. There's a lot of tension and drama in the scene of Akira asking for Naomi's hand in marriage, so I don't like that one. So I would go with B, a detailed depiction of a meaningful encounter. One thing I want to point out about this answer choice is that it feels kind of vague. Like, it feels like that would describe any passage. Don't be freaked out by that on the SAT. Often that's the case, that the right answer is kind of general, but it does accurately capture the passage, and often a wrong answer will be weirdly specific or just have one word that's not quite right. Like in A, analysis is not quite right. If A said a careful analysis of what happens when a traditional practice is broken, that would be right, but that's a very different answer. So I would go with B for this one. Number 3, as used in line 1, in line 65, directly most nearly means blank. Okay, so with this kind of question, I go back and read the lines and I say blank where they have the word. So in line 1, Akira came blankly, breaking all tradition. And then in line 65, I ask blankly because the use of a go-between takes much time. So then I'll go through the answer choices. Oh, if I were to predict a word, I guess I'd say straightforwardly. Or, the other thing I'm thinking is that it's just the opposite of using a go-between, which you can really tell from the second use of the word directly. I asked directly because the use of a go-between takes much time. So he's saying I'm doing the opposite of using a go-between. And if we understand the original passage, we can tell that the tradition is for a man to ask his parents to ask the parents of the woman he wants to marry if that's allowed. Basically, that's kind of what we can tell from the details of the passage. Okay, so now I'm going to go through the answer choices. So A is frankly, which you might know means like honestly, directly, or it can really mean straightforward as well. So that I like, but I'm going to read the other answer choices, which is, a strategy. Make sure you read all of the answer choices. It sounds stupid, but people don't do that. So yeah, frankly is appealing, but something that I don't like about that answer is that, I like it, but I don't love it. And part of what I'm not loving about it is that I don't like how it does not, for me, evoke exactly the opposite of using a go-between. Okay. B, confidently. Confidently is like you feel optimistic that everything's going to go fine, partly because of like your own attributes. I don't think that that's fitting here. C, without mediation. I do think that students tend to misread this word as meditation sometimes, which would be like contemplating something thoughtfully or trying to clear your mind. But this word is mediation, which you may have heard if you ever were aware of a legal mediation, which tends to mean that somebody is serving as a go-between for two parties that can't come to an agreement on their own, two people who can't agree to some legal breakdown on their own. They'll bring in a lawyer who's a mediator. So directly without mediation, I do like that because especially for the second instance of the use of the word, I ask without a go-between directly because the use of the go-between takes much time. I like that. And also if we look at the first paragraph, Akira came without a go-between. Remember, that's what without mediation would mean. Breaking all tradition. Was that it? Had he followed form? Had he asked his mother to speak to his father to approach a go-between? Would he have been more receptive? So comparing and contrasting A and C, I do like C better because it's more directly serving as an opposite to the idea of having a go-between. I still think, frankly, is pretty good, but I just think C is better. And then D with precision. I can see how you could think that like having a go-between would make things less precise, but it's just not the best answer choice because that's not the emphasis. The emphasis is that he's asking on his own rather than having his parents ask in his place just because of the time constraints in the situation. So I would pick C. I am sure that A is a very popular answer with lots of students. So don't feel bad if you got that wrong. That's just you kind of not being used to taking the test. If you got that one wrong, you're completely right that directly can mean frankly, and that it's not bad in this context. It's just that C is better. Okay, for which reaction does Akira most fear from Chie? So remember that Akira is the kind of like the main character, the man who is asking for Naomi's hand in marriage, and Chie is the mother. And then also just remember that the information in the last paragraph of the second column on page 334, that is knowledge that the omniscient narrator has, but it's not knowledge that Akira has access to. So you want to be careful about that when you're answering this question. So you want to try to adopt the mindset of Akira. What does Akira fear from Chie? He can only fear things that he's perceiving that he's aware of. So he doesn't know all that information in line 46 to 52. Okay, so A, she will consider his proposal inappropriate. I do like that answer choice because mostly the quote, line 63, please don't judge my candidacy by the unseemliness of this proposal. One thing that I want to point out about this question is that you'll notice when you flip the page that the fifth question is actually giving you quotes to support this question, and I have a separate video, which I'll link in the comment section below, explaining a strategy to set yourself up to answer these questions really effectively. So a strategy is to pre-mark the questions before you start the questions, and I just write a Q next to questions like number 4 that come before the quote questions. So question number 5 is just giving quotes and saying, which of these quotes gave you the answer to the previous question, which means the question before. So one strategy is to just look at these lines. I can see that lines 63 to 64 are offered as evidence, which makes me gravitate towards A for number 4. So, which reaction does Akira most fear from Chie? She will consider his proposal inappropriate. That is an idea that Akira has, like a concern that he has. And this quote in question 5 shows that he has that feeling, because he says to Chie, "Please don't judge my candidacy by the unseemliness of this proposal." I asked directly because the use of a go-between takes much time. So even if you didn't know the word unseemly, you can tell from the context clues that he's saying it's inappropriate because it's breaking tradition. You can also tell from the first paragraph that because he's breaking tradition, that might be regarded as inappropriate. Appropriate would be traditional. Okay, so then let's make sure that we look at the other answer choices, because there still might be one that's better. B, she will mistake his earnestness for immaturity. So this one is kind of like a trap answer, I would say, because it draws really heavily upon the quotes in that paragraph that I was talking about. So like the quotes in line 46 to 52, which I assume are listed in question 5. Not really clearly, but line 33, let's see. Line 33, his voice was soft, refined, he straightened and stole a deferential peek at her face. That quote from question 5 really doesn't help at all with question 4. Let's look at, in question 5, answer B gives lines 49 to 51, which is going to be from that paragraph that kind of gives the omniscient narrator's view of Chie and the access to Chie's thoughts. So those lines are, so those lines would confuse a lot of students and make them gravitate towards B for number 4, because those lines 49 to 51 say, "You know how children speak so earnestly, so hurriedly, so endearingly about things that have no importance in an adult's mind." So that's an omniscient narrator talking about what Chie is thinking as she listens to Akira, but Akira doesn't know that, so that cannot be the right answer. C is okay. She will consider his unscheduled visit an imposition. I think that's definitely true. I think that's true. That's really tough, actually, between A and C. I'm just gonna look at D really quickly, because I assume we can get rid of that, because A and C are so good. I assume D can't be equally good. D, she will underestimate the sincerity of his emotions. That same quote that I just read, 49 to 51, tells you that D is wrong, because the omniscient narrator is saying that Chie... Oh, no, sorry, that's not helpful. Because the omniscient narrator knows that, but Akira doesn't. I just don't think there's any evidence that Akira is afraid that Chie will think that Akira is not sincere. The two things that he's most worried about are that Chie will think that he's rude for breaking tradition, and then also at the beginning he just is afraid that she'll think he's rude for coming to their house late at night. So at this point, when I'm comparing A and C, one thing I would say is that the heart of the issue in this passage is the proposal, which makes me like A more. The other thing I would say is that the whole reason he's there for the visit is to propose, which makes A better than C. And also, it's just way more important asking for the proposal. So that's why that would be the thing he's most afraid about. And then the other thing is that the quotes for question 5, C is a really good quote to support A. So let's just reread those to see how they sound together. So A in number 4 is, she will consider his proposal inappropriate. Is C in question 5 good evidence for this? Line 63 to 64. Please don't judge my candidacy by the unseemliness of this proposal. Yes, so one thing that's tricky about that is that he's saying both things, A and C, but his primary concern is that she'll just reject his proposal just because of the timing. So that's why I like A better for question 4, and that's why I like C for question 5. Since we want to use our strategy of reading all the answer choices, I would like to read answer choice D for question 5, even though I feel almost 100% sure that it's wrong. Line 71 to 72 those lines say, without your consent, I must go to America to secure a new home for my bride. So I could see how people might like this because it's saying that if he doesn't get approval, he'll have to do this, but that's not capturing the idea that she'll consider his proposal inappropriate, not as well as lines 63 to 64. Okay, so that's question 4 and 5. Okay, question 6. In the passage, Akira addresses Chie with blank. So this is the man who's asking for Naomi's hand in marriage, and it's saying how is he acting towards Chie, which is Naomi's mom. Affection but not genuine love. I really don't like this answer because it's not about like this question of fondness versus if you actually love somebody. So I would get rid of that. That's not the heart of the issue of the passage. B, objectivity but not complete impartiality. That's really weird for this passage. That's the type of thing you would see maybe if someone was at a trial for somebody and they're trying to be scientific and clear-cut objective without being biased or having some inclination to vote in a certain way, that kind of thing. 6C, amusement but not mocking disparagement. So I could see students just being like, disparagement, I do not know what that is, I will circle it. That happens sometimes. I would say often the word amusement is wrong. So Akira addresses Chie. Also, if you think about it, if you were predicting the answer for this, the dominant emotion is nervousness and fear that she'll reject his proposal. Okay, and then D, respect but not utter deference. I really hate the other three so much that I would just go for this one, but let's talk about what's good about this one. So he obviously respects her. He wouldn't have been so nervous if he didn't respect her opinion. Utter deference, this means completely deferring to her judgment, which would mean something like, it would mean he wouldn't even propose if he couldn't do it the traditional way. It would also mean that he wouldn't knock on her door late at night, which is a little bit rude. So that's why I like D for question 6. Okay, question 7. The main purpose of the first paragraph is to blank. Okay, so a lot of students get this question wrong. Let's reread the first paragraph briefly. I would say this kind of question, you probably should predict an answer before you look at the answer choices. So I would just read the first paragraph. Also notice it's only lines 1 through 4. And predict just generally what their purpose is. Like, what is this section doing for the passage as a whole? Okay, so it says, Akira came directly, breaking all tradition. Was that it? Had he followed form? Had he asked his mother to speak to his father to approach a go-between? Would Chie have been more receptive? Okay, so if I were to paraphrase this, I would say that this is just characterizing the manner in which Akira asked for Naomi's hand in marriage. So it's just depicting a specific incident of him asking for Naomi's hand in marriage. And this, for me, conjures up the idea of him just worrying and thinking, how could I have done this differently? Okay. So A, describe a culture. This is a really popular wrong answer. This answer I think you can avoid if you use the strategy of imagine what the passage would look like if this were the right answer. That's just a strategy that I use. So if the purpose of the first paragraph were to describe a culture, what would the paragraph have? This paragraph only has his thoughts about this one incident of asking for Naomi's hand in marriage. If it were describing a culture, it would describe more elements of the culture. Something like, food, dress, ceremonies. There'd be more to it if it were describing a culture. B, criticize a tradition. I don't think he's criticizing it. He's just mulling over his own actions and how they broke tradition. C, question a suggestion. For this one, I do think he's asking lots of questions, but he's not questioning a suggestion. A suggestion would come from someone else. He's questioning his own actions and if they were the best approach to take with his goal of proposing to Naomi. D, analyze reaction. At this point, I would compare and contrast A and D. So if we're thinking that D might be the answer, then we have to ask ourselves, is there analysis? Analysis is considering multiple perspectives and breaking something down, which is what he's doing here. And a reaction, he's analyzing the reaction of Chie to his manner of proposing marriage to Naomi. So D is the best answer. Okay, 8 is a word most nearly means question, so I would reread this line and predict what the word means. As used in line 2, form most nearly means. So in line 2, was that it? Had he followed form? Had he asked his mother to speak to his father to approach blah, blah, blah. Form, I'm going to say means tradition. So then I'm looking for a word that means tradition. A, appearance. B, custom. C, structure. D, nature. I like B and C, but I think that custom aligns more with tradition. I also just would then read that in. Had he followed custom? That makes sense. Custom is just a behavior of a certain group of people. Structures, oh, it's pretty good. It's okay, but it's not as specific as custom. You really want to get the idea of this is some tradition in a certain culture, and that's what he's questioning. Had he followed this particular pattern of behavior within a certain culture? So B is the best answer. Okay, so 9 and 10 are interconnected. So when we look at question 9, one strategy is to then jump to the quotes in question 10 to find our support for the right answer. So 9 says, why does Akira say his meeting with Chie is a matter of urgency? And it's saying that is in line 32. So, it's kind of logical that the quote would probably be close to that. The question is, why is this so urgent? Let's look at the quotes in question 10 to see if we can find support for the answer to question 9. So we're looking for the answer to the question, why is this so urgent? And then line 39, let's read that. 39 is, I don't want to trouble you. That's all it is. Yeah, so that's a really short quote and says almost nothing. So that's out. That's not telling us an answer. That's not telling us enough. I like the look of answer B, line 39 to 42, because it starts with normally, which sounds to me like he's going to give a justification for why he's breaking tradition. Okay, so B, line 39 to 42. It grabs the same... Yeah, almost the same section, but it's starting with normally. Normally I would approach you more properly, but I perceived word of a position. I have an opportunity to go to America as a dentist for Seattle's Japanese community. Okay, I really like this answer for number 10, lines 39 to 42, but I am going to look at the other two answer choices because we always want to read all the answers. There might be another one that seems to say why the issue is urgent. So answer C, 58 to 59. 58 is, depending on your response, I may say in Japan, I've come to ask for Naomi's hand. Oh, actually, it's only just the depending on your response, I may stay in Japan. That's pretty good because that's saying why it's urgent, but I don't think it says much giving the reason why it's urgent, because the main reason it's urgent is because he has a job offer. So I still like B better. I totally see the appeal of C though, but it's just not the heart of the reason why he's having to ask urgently. And then let's look at answer D for 10, 72 to 73. I see I've startled you. My humble apologies. I'll take no more of your evening. Let's see. Did I grab the right quote? Oh, 72 to 73 is really short. It's just, I see I've startled you, actually, so it's definitely not that. I would say in general, the shorter quotes tend to not be the best, but every once in a while they will be. But you can see answer A and D almost say nothing. And B is just slightly better than C for number 10. Then let's return to question 9 to answer that. So A, he fears that his own parents will disapprove of Naomi. They never mention his parents, and certainly not in that quote that we just found. B, he worries that Naomi will reject him and marry someone else. This is really detailed and not in the passage. It's not about worrying about Naomi rejecting him. We kind of get an idea from the end of the passage that she likes him. It's all about his needing to go through this process of asking to marry Naomi, so B's pretty bad. C, he has not. He has been offered an attractive job in another country. So 9C pairs really nicely with 10B. Let's look at 9D and see if it has any appeal. He knows that Chie is unaware of his feelings for Naomi. So, sure, he's saying that he wants to marry Naomi, so he is conveying his feelings, but that's not why the meeting's urgent. The meeting is urgent because if Chie completely rejects the idea of Naomi and Akira getting married, then Akira's gonna put his career first and go to Japan. Or if Chie approves, if Chie approves, then that's a totally different situation, and then it's like another step that he has to find out if they can live in America or Japan. So I do think this one's really tricky because I think that for 10C, I think it's super appealing, but it's just not as big of the reason why he has to ask urgently. The whole thing that spurs him to ask urgently is that he gets offered this job, and then it's like a secondary fact that it depends on the response if he'll stay in Japan, but that one is really tricky. So if you did pick C for 10, I could totally understand that, but if you just looked at number 9 and thought about what the answer is, it has to have something to do with the job, and the quote for 10B has a lot more to do with the job aspect of the situation and what makes it urgent.